Hi, I'm Clayton Mask, and on the Conquer the Chaos podcast, I talk with inspiring business owners about what it takes to build a great business and a great life. That means more money, more time, more control, more impact, more freedom. So keep listening to hear the tough lessons they learned so you don't have to repeat them. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Conquer the Chaos podcast. I'm Clayton Mask, co-founder and CEO of Keep and the host of the Conquer the Chaos podcast. And I am excited today to talk to a longtime friend, longtime customer, longtime digital direct marketer that we go way, way back. And so this is going to be a really fun conversation because we're going to cover things from marketing, business ownership, leadership, mindset, and help you to conquer the chaos in your world. Let me introduce to you this friend. And by the way, this is also a customer who has one of the very early domain names of our product. And so this is a fun one because we go back probably 15, 16, 17 years, something like that. So let me welcome to the Conquer the Chaos podcast our guest today, Ben Glass. Ben, great to be with you here.
Clay, man, one of the fun things, I host a podcast. I'm on a lot of podcasts. And so one of the fun things for me is I get my friends that I've had from we'll just call it the Dan Kennedy world, for 20 years. Yeah. And sometimes we haven't been in the same room, in over a decade as it is here. And we're just going to riff and we'll let people listen in on our conversation as we catch up on live. You and I have both been doing this for a long time, like serving small biz owners, helping the world move, serving really all the customers of the small biz owners who use your product, or, in my case, lawyers running small practices. Yep. And it's a really fun place to be. And you and I are survivors.
Yep. Very true. Well, and let me just, for our audience, let me just tell you a little bit more about Ben. Ben is a practicing attorney of 41 years. He, many years ago, recognized that marketing in small law firms was a real challenge and was holding back these attorneys from building the kinds of practices and lifestyles that they wanted. And they were being really kind of captive to their law practice. And by the way, that has a lot of meaning for me because I went to law school. I worked in law firm before I went to business school and got into software. And I've seen the truth of what he's sharing. I know what he's saying. So he started a practice to teach attorneys how to do great legal marketing, and the company is called Great Legal Marketing. And so we'll talk about great legal marketing, but he has been an expert in this area for 15 years. So maybe tell us a little bit more about what you do, Ben. You can. Let's leave the law part aside for the most part. Let's focus on what you do in teaching law firms, because sure. I think that applies not just to law firms, of course, but I think it'll help our audience understand the wealth of experience and knowledge that you have.
Yeah, so thanks. So primarily I am dad to 9, right, as you and I were talking about before we went live. And so that's the primary, a very sort of standardized routine growth path in legal. Discovered I didn't know anything about running a business, which led me to that world of sales and marketing, led me to Dan Kennedy. Kennedy led me to then Infusionsoft, now Keep. And so, if anything, I've been a good student. When I first heard Kennedy in his early tapes that I got, I didn't understand, Clayt, half the words he was using, let alone the content. Right. Yeah, but I realized, like, if I could figure out this thing that they call direct marketing, if I could figure it out, it would revolutionize the practice, because I don't see anybody doing this in legal. Yeah. And really they weren't. And so we started creating information pamphlets and booklets. I mean, remember, this is Yellow Page days. This is right. Really pre-website, pre-email. And so we were trying to figure out how to stand out, in a crowded market of, for those of you who are young, you've probably never seen a giant Yellow Page book filled with either the A's for attorneys or the L for lawyers, just hundreds and hundreds of pages. So I started to figure that out. And then, thank goodness, at the same time, you and your co-founders were figuring out that this direct marketing was a problem to be solved in part with technology. And so you all introduced Infusionsoft back in the day. I was one of the early users and still am a customer. And so that helped to automate a lot of what we did. And because what we learned was you could, rather than shout, "Hey, I'm here, come hire me," you could shout, "Hey, I'm here. Maybe you have a question. Here's some information. Let me get your contact info. Let me follow up. Let's do all of that stuff that we teach." So as I grew the practice, then friends said,
Hey,
you could teach this.
yeah,
Right. You could
that's right.
start another business, as so many of your friends and my friends have done over the years. And so we were one of the very earliest teaching lawyers how. In the beginning, Clayton was teaching personal injury lawyers how to advertise better. Today, Great Legal Marketing is we're a pure coaching organization. We don't sell services. We don't sell websites or pay-per-click or anything like that. We help mom and pop who are growing a law practice organically and not spending tens of thousands of dollars a month. We help them stand out in a very crowded market. We help them compete against the 800-pound gorillas, and they do very well. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's. I want to come back around to the Great Legal Marketing practice and what you do there. But let me just. There's a couple things I want to touch on there. The first thing is, when you got into this niche, you recognized that so many professionals, like attorneys, doctors, accountants, they've been grown and taught and educated to do their practice, not to do their marketing. And in fact, in law, it's very interesting because I know in that background, a lot of times the marketing is actually shunned. It's looked down upon. It's like, no, we can't do that. We'll just deliver great professional service, and then the practice will grow. And it's not, the reason I want to draw this out is that mentality is prevalent among professionals who get their degree and their certificates, and they think that education prepares them to go build a great business. And unfortunately, some hold on to that belief all the way through to their entire career of having a subpar practice from what they could build if they would really dig into marketing. But it's not just true in professionals. I see this mentality exists among many business owners where they think, look, if I build it, they'll come. If we build a better mousetrap, if we deliver great service, we'll grow by referrals. All these things are typical mindsets that hold back the business owner from really growing and building a great business. So I want to just kind of press down a little bit on this experience, because I believe this is a very common problem that holds back small businesses from accomplishing what they want to in their business. They don't develop this marketing mindset. And you dealt with it among attorneys and have built a whole business around this, a whole coaching business around this now for 15 years. And so I'm interested to know, what did you discover that needed to unlock for people to embrace the marketing mindset?
And as you were speaking, the word unlock came to mind. So here's the mindset unlock. It doesn't matter if you're a lawyer. It'll apply to almost anybody. But the question I ask lawyers, Clayt, is this: two questions. Number one, are you a good lawyer? So ask a room full of lawyers, and they'll raise their hands.
They'll all say yes. Yeah.
I went to law school. I passed the bar. I'm a good lawyer. Second question is important. Is there someone in your town right now walking around with a legal problem or an opportunity for whom you would be the perfect lawyer for them, and they would be a great client for you? And everyone is going to say yes. Now it's a matter of finding that person. Okay. Well, Clayt, if true and true, why would you let that person wander into another law office for whom the experience is not going to be, as perfect as it would be walking into your office?
Right.
And so now we call what our J. Abraham, sort of the moral obligation to market. So to those who say, well, marketing's bad, or I shouldn't have to market, I'm saying you're doing your community a misservice.
Yes.
By not letting them know about what you do, how you do it, why you do it. Now, you are not going to be perfect for everyone. We get it. But why do we let people wander into, you're a dentist. Why let people wander into a practice that's not as good as your practice is? And if you don't believe your practice is good and you don't have a team that believes your practice is good, those are different problems.
Right.
And we shouldn't do marketing to drive people into a bad customer experience, especially today with online reviews. But let's just start there. That for me, Clay, you serve the world better by letting people know clearly what it is you're good at and you like doing.
Yeah. So you unlocked people's mindset by helping them see who they are for the market, and that it's a disservice to not attract that ideal customer into their business.
Yes. I mean,
that's a
great,
you're
not serving the world.
Yep. Great way to do it. And I think about some of my friends in those early days of law who were very opposed to advertising and marketing, and fundamentally what they're seeing is they're looking at advertising and marketing as something they don't want to be, instead of looking at who they are and who their ideal customer is and then matching it up.
100%. 100%. And so, we teach this kind of hierarchy. What kind of life do you want to live? What kind of business supports that life? What type of customer, patient, or client supports that business? Okay, if we have clear answers to those three questions, then and only then, Clay, do we think about what's the marketing.
There we go. Okay,
go attract that person.
Go through that hierarchy again.
This is
the first
really
one.
important. Really important. And you could be in practice for 50 years and even change. So don't worry if you've been at it for a while.
And you can be in business in any kind of industry, right? I mean, that hierarchy you just went through. What kind of
life do you want to live? Like, what would be perfect for Ben? And I give lawyers permission to think that way. Like, we have one life. We don't know how long we have. Let's live it in our own happiness. Okay, number one. So then number two, what kind of a practice, because there's different kind of law practices, would support that lifestyle that you would like. Some lawyers like to be in court, others don't, all right? Don't build a court litigation practice if you hate it.
Yeah.
And then number three, what kind of, who would you love to see walking through your door as a client? Like, what would go, yes, this is perfect for me, perfect for that person.
Yep.
Boom. Once we know those three things, all right, now what's the messaging, what's the media to that person to attract more of what we call my perfect client, my perfect avatar, to walk through the door? Because in any business, when a customer comes through the door and the owner and the team are charged up and love the work they do, the customer is better served.
Yep. And then everything goes more smoothly for not only the customer, but for the employees, for the business owner, for the business owner's family. So when you get clear that hierarchy, number one, what kind of business, what kind of life do you want to live? And then what kind of business or practice would support that lifestyle? And then what kind of clients would make up that sort of practice or business that supports your lifestyle? And then now you've got to a place where you know your ideal customer profile. You know what your ideal client looks like. And now you can speak to that client and get really clear in connecting with them, who you are for them and why you serve them really well. And suddenly the job of advertising and marketing doesn't seem so used car salesman-ish. It's just connecting up who in the world is right for you and who you are right for in the world.
We don't force or fool anybody into coming to be a client with us. Right. But we say very clearly what we do, what we're good at, and we are good at a couple of narrow verticals. Yeah. And we have a lot of third-party sort of endorsement of that. And the space where we play and compete with people, with other firms, Clay, is in the experience, right? Because it's kind of hard for a consumer to tell, is lawyer A or lawyer B a better lawyer? I don't know. But we're going to deliver the very best experience of anybody in our region. Like, nobody could beat us on experience.
So you create, then you teach in your coaching, you're teaching your members how to build that kind of experience, how to differentiate from others by creating the practice that serves their ideal customer profile the best.
From the moments they find us, either by referral or find one of our digital properties, until long after the case is over. Like we stay in contact. We stay a part of their lives for as long as they want us to stay a part of their lives.
Yeah.
In interesting ways, which is another whole topic. But again, I remember walking into your I think it was your old offices now, speaking with Christina many, many years ago, and you had these huge, larger than life avatars, so that everyone it was Infusionsoft at the time, but every employee knew, like, hey, here's the 4 or 5 different types of business owners that we serve, and here's what they like and what they need. And every single day, your team is walking in, not being distracted by life and all the many things we could say to someone in advertising,
right,
but talking to those 4 or 5 avatars. So we're clear on what that is in our firm. And again, any business owner, like a dentist doesn't serve every mouth, right? I'm sure. Here's another thing I truly believe, Clayton, is every human being has a unique set of gifts, talents, and interests. And it is unique in mankind. Like nobody else has your combination.
Right.
And I believe that we're put on earth, Clay, to shine that combination of gifts, talents, and interests on the world. Like, let's do things we're good at, we like doing. Don't do things we're not good at, because, Clay, you may be really charged up by something that I hate doing. You come work with me, or we'll joint venture or something like that. But that's the other thing. I think a lot of lawyers and biz owners get frustrated with life because they try to do everything, try to be everything, and they don't realize that they're really born to serve according to how they were made. Like, and everybody's different.
Okay, we're going to keep this going, but first, a quick message for you. Hey, listeners, as you know, automation is the great game changer in small business. And every year, we do an annual conference to bring together people who are serious about growing their business with automation. Now, it also creates an amazing balance in your life. That's why we love automation so much. So if you are serious about the keys to success for entrepreneurship and you want to do more with less, especially in these times, you want to make sure that you're getting the most out of automation, do not miss our annual conference. It'll be November 20th through 22nd, right here in downtown Phoenix, with an amazing community of entrepreneurs, business owners, and their teams who are looking to grow their business, create more time, more savings, and more control, and gain more control in their business. It's going to be an awesome event. I love this event, especially the customer contests that show you how they're using automation to grow their business. So make sure that you sign up. You don't want to miss this. So make sure you register. You can do that at keep.com/letsgrowsummit and take advantage of our early bird registration pricing. That expires July 30th. You don't want to miss out on that. So again, it's keep.com/letsgrowsummit. November 20th to 22nd. It's going to be a fantastic event. Again, keep.com/letsgrowsummit. We'll see you there November 20th through 22nd in downtown Phoenix. All right, now back to our chat. That's the thing, when you get really clear on that, who you are, what you offer, what you're great at, it becomes magnetic. It becomes, it attracts the right customer profile. It repels the wrong ones, the ones that it's not going to be a good fit. And so much of the job of getting really clear for the market begins with who you are and what you offer, which is why it's so important to go through that hierarchy you took us through. Well, what do you want? And what would create an ideal, what do you want in life? What would create an ideal practice or what's the ideal practice that would create that? And then getting really clear for your customers about who you are and how you serve them in a differentiated way than somebody else. When you and I sat in these conferences many years ago and we were taking in these principles of direct marketing, the technologies were different. AI wasn't even beginning to be a thing back then.
Right.
But the principles have stayed the same. It's so interesting to me. I look at the people who practice the principles of direct marketing, and it doesn't matter what platform they're using. It doesn't matter if it's TikTok or email or Instagram or
whatever.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. It really is just a matter of getting these principles nailed down. I remember when I was in that time, and I was learning from Dan Kennedy and others. Dan said something one day that I will never forget. And he said, and it's along the lines of this concept of realizing that you need to embrace marketing and in order to grow your business. And he said, you are a marketer, but you're not a marketer of your product or service. And when he said that, it was kind of like, okay. He said, you're a marketer of information about your product or he said, you're a marketer of information, but he said, but you're not a marketer of information about your product or service. You're a marketer of information about the problems that are solved by your product or service. And that progression, I'm a marketer, but not about my product or service. I'm a marketer of information, but not information about my product or service, information about the problems that are solved by the product or service. And when you see people who are really great in small business marketing, they're really great at talking about the problems that are solved by their product or service. And I've seen you do that in an amazing way in the legal niche. I've seen so many others kind of in their niche, but they're talking about the problems that are solved by their product or service for their target customer. So, that was one of many principles that I remembered from Dan when in those early days that made a big difference. And I've carried that with me for 18 years now.
Well, think about why this is. And it's exactly true. But the reason why it is that when you just talk about your product or your service, you're talking about you, me, Ben, and that's boring.
Mm-hmm.
When I create, we would call information marketing, I'm not just educating the prospect. I'm creating trust in me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So much of our marketing, and we have to be careful when we use the word brand and branding, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, Clay, so many people know me for reasons other than he's a lawyer. Like they know this story.
Right.
And so you create information that helps educate because many people are searching, but then you disclose and people know your story and they see you as a trustworthy individual to reach out to first. So no matter, like we want people to call us no matter what their legal issue is. We only do a couple of narrow verticals, but my Rolodex is really big and I'm going to send you on your way. And so it's another thing. It's a second thing that a lot of lawyers struggle with is, how do I use these various media to not just make it all about me as Ben the lawyer, hire me, I'm the best, I get you the most money, right? That's plainest personal injury marketing in a nutshell. Or, hey, here's Ben the soccer referee, dad to 9, running a couple businesses, loves small biz. Oh, that's kind of memorable, right? More than, oh, I had a car accident.
Right.
So there's a lot of layers to this. And I think, as you alluded to, Clay, the technology, the flood of technology today, I think, confuses people and slows them down. They see Billy over here doing this, and they see Clayt over here doing this, they see Ben over here doing this, and then they try to do all three of those things.
Right.
Which is nobody can afford. Nobody has the time to do that.
That's right. Yeah. So you talked, let me go back to what you said a little earlier. You talked about the interesting ways that you help your clients to follow up after the case is over. You and I both know how critical follow-up is. I talk about this in Conquer the Chaos. It's at the heart of the customer strategy of staying in front of the customer. What are some of the things that you've learned and that you teach your clients that help to stay present, stay relevant, stay on top of the mind of their potential, clients over time? Because as we all know, you can have this great client experience and think, oh, I'm going to grow by referrals and they're going to come back to me. But the reality is they move on in life. They're busy doing something else and they have a need arise in their life for your services, but they've forgotten. So what is it that you do to solve that problem? What are some of the things that you've found to help your clients with that?
So first of all, this is a really important point. 80% of our money, or nearly 80% of our money, comes because somebody started by mentioning our name to somebody else. So that's important.
Yeah,
look, we're old school. I it's old school, but everything old is new. We publish and a wonderful 8-page monthly newsletter from the law firm that's very little about the law. It is about the personalities, either clients and client success stories. It's about our team. It's about books we've read and recipes and all this stuff that you would think like, who would read that stuff? Our stuff gets put up on refrigerators of homes.
So physical newsletter. You're sending a physical newsletter that people will put up. Yeah.
In fact, it's so funny because, as my youngin' marketing team's like, oh, we have to do email newsletters. I said, well, if you're going to do an email newsletter, it has to be even better than a physical newsletter, because if you think of all the emails you get and you just hit delete. So you got to do something. If you're going to put the energy into that, it has to be along the lines of whatever the most opened, famous email deliverable newsletters are. And I'm not sure we have the bandwidth to actually do that. But that's number one. Number two is we've got our referral sources. So other largely professionals, private clients, lawyers, healthcare, doctors, who refer cases to us. So we have a whole separate newsletter for them. And that newsletter, Clayt, is mainly repurposing marketing that I write for the great legal marketing community, making it generic and agnostic to business, and getting that out. So again, that newsletter is not about, hey, remember Ben, send me a case. It's like, here's something I learned. Here's a book. Here's a podcast that you might be interested in, because I know that you are interested in growing your business. So that's two things. The other thing is, we try to do as many person-to-person events. When we built our space here, we built a training center, so we invite community in to use it for free if they want. We host our own events here. Again, it's not always about how do you do a case better. It's about all of these things. And so people walk into the lobby of my office, Clayt, and they go, what is this place really? It doesn't look like a law firm. Right? And that's it. So for us, so you can choose to spend $100K a month on advertising. You absolutely can, right? And if you're the largest spender in the market, you'll do well. But it can only be one of those, right? The largest. And so we have focused on this so-called grassroots, genuine, here's our story, but what's your story and how can I help you? Like, is there something that we could do for you? And then we find Clayt's running a pizza shop. Oh, great. Let's put a story of your pizza shop in our newsletter and just tell the community. And then you'll take that newsletter, you'll put it in your front desk or the front, counter at the pizza shop. So but again, it's nothing new.
Yeah.
These are harder than doing one more, what do you call it, social media post of some image that goes on Instagram. I'm not on Instagram.
Well, what strikes me is it's very personal and there's connection. You're doing physical newsletters, you're doing referral networks, you're doing events, you're bringing people into your space, you're creating relationship. In all of those things, it's a very personal, relationship-oriented approach, which doesn't surprise me that you are an early adopter of customer relationship management software, because that's what this is. This is managing relationships, building relationships in a very personal way. And it's interesting because what I've noticed over the last couple of years, I think it's really a post-COVID effect, that the relationship building, there's a void there. There's been, in a lot of ways, technology and I think society was moving so fast and away from true in-person relationship building, and then COVID just put a huge freeze on it. And so post-COVID, there's kind of this rebound effect that's happening, and people are craving this. They're wanting relationship, and I think that's why what's old is new. And like you said, there's an opportunity for people to inject genuineness and personality and relationship and connection where people have been starving for that for a while. And it sounds like you're teaching that and practicing that and working on that with your coaching clients.
And it is the huge opportunity, Clayt, for any small business owner.
Because that's what differentiates. It's what makes you different.
And it's more work than, again, just creating another graphic for TikTok or whatever. And not say TikTok, won't work. I haven't figured out how to make it work, but but so the business owners who spend the time, I think, going to events like yours, reading your podcast and listening to this blog, or reading your blog and listening to this podcast, are the ones who can find ideas that are affordable, doable. You do not need to own the whole market. You need 1,000 true friends in any business who will know your name and your story and have the confidence to make a referral to you. Again, whether you're selling sub sandwiches, accounting services, whatever, like it's business agnostic.
Right.
And that's the value really in listening to your podcast, actually, because you bring on so many guests who have these ideas, and you just build and build and build. And you say, oh, that's one I could do. Nah, I'm not really comfortable doing this, but here's another one I could do. Or here's a team member who would like to do something that I'm not comfortable doing.
Yep.
If it's, I just say, Brian and I, my son, like we say to ourselves, we're playing the endless game of business, right? It's puzzle, 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 grow, puzzle,
just
fail,
build,
fix, grow, right?
By the way, that's one of the things about the mindset of marketing that I learned early on, and I realized it's not, many business owners don't take this approach. It's in marketing, it really is about failing fast, finding, learning, okay, that didn't work. Okay, let me make this adjustment. Oh, maybe that didn't work because of this. You don't just try something and then throw it out. You adjust, you tweak, you modify, you build on it. You start to find the pieces that work for you, build that into a program, into a campaign. And I think a lot of times business owners, they kind of have I tried that and it didn't work, and they move on. It's like, no, well, what's the next thing you did? What did you take from that did work? What did you apply? Yeah. How did you adjust it? Like there's a formula for success in marketing that you don't just discover right away, because every business owner is a little different. They have a different ideal customer profile. So you've got to get that honed in. And it's a trial and error. And so I love that endless game of business point that you're making, because, I think about some of the things we've tried over the years that just, they didn't work. And you spend that money and you think, oh, well, we wasted that money. Well, did you? No, you didn't waste it. You learned, and now you're applying that to the next thing and working to get better and better. For that reason, you might have heard me tell this story years ago. When we first started the business, I was with Scott and Eric. You know Scott and Eric, and they're Sharice's younger brothers. And part of the reason why we've always had such an affinity with you is that you're an attorney with 9 kids, and Sharice and Eric and Scott's dad's an attorney with 10 kids. And so we've swapped some notes on that. But one of the things that was so amazing in the early days when we started our business was I came in as the person who understood business, partnering up with my 2 technologist brothers-in-law who were software developers. And I was doing the books the first week, and I'm going through QuickBooks on the line items, and under the payroll section, there was us, and then there was this other name, Mark. And I was like, and it was $5,000. And back then, that was a lot of money for us each month to be paying $5,000 to Mark when I hadn't seen Mark at all. So I go into these guys and I'm like, guys, you brought me in as a partner. You didn't tell me you had this other partner that's taking $5,000 a month. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I said, I was just doing the books, and it's in the payroll section. It says Mark, $5,000. And they started laughing. They're like, oh, we decided when we first started the business that we were always going to pay $5,000 a month to our marketing budget to make sure that we were learning and growing and developing. And so we just call it Mark. And I said, that is hilarious. And I've come to realize how brilliant that was, to actually allocate an amount of money every month that you're spending on marketing, and you're using it to get smarter and wiser and learn. And there were times where we spent $5,000 on a direct mail campaign that got us 0 leads. There were times where we spent $5,000 on a new source and it didn't work out very well. We got a couple leads, and it was, really, you could conclude that was a waste. But it wasn't, because we were playing, as you just said, the endless game of business of refining our marketing, figuring out what was working, wasn't working. And it was that mentality that I think was one of the smartest things that we did early on in our business to learn how to become marketers of our product and service.
It is the advantage that the small business owner has, which, as you know, the larger the business and the more committees you have, and the more hands in the pot that want to chime in on decision making, the harder it is to do this. So,
Right.
so that's one. So trying things and learning, and then of course the other thing that's been great for me, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well, is you accelerate that learning when you are in rooms of people who do things bigger, better, and faster than you are. So I've both been in and run mastermind groups where either a room full of lawyers or a room full of mixed businesses get in. And so, Clay, you could say, hey, here's a piece we did, we tried, we got 0. Here's a piece we did, we tried, we got 5%, right? A good number, let's just say.
Yeah.
And then you go around the room, and out of the room comes always an improvement on some part, either design or list or call to action, right? And so our joint friend, Bill Glazer, would tell us, the entrepreneur is the loneliest person in the world. And this is true. And so, but we want people to know, you and I do on this podcast, that, one of the best places you can be in is to find a group, and don't be the smartest one in the room, right? Find a group of, I have found that successful people are abundance minded and will share. Like they will.
No doubt. Get into a mastermind or into a coaching group or something, and it makes all the difference. It definitely helps address that loneliness.
100%, because this work is hard. Like you can decide to run a business and reap the rewards, but that is a roller coaster, and it is hard work, and the world needs entrepreneurs. And you can make just as great a decision to be an employee and support a business and a business owner, and the world needs you as well. And so, Clay, part of what I do in life is just help people, especially young people, like, what's a path? The sad part is lawyers, they go to law school, Clay, and they see this really narrow path to big law.
Right.
They don't even know that I exist. They don't even know that thousands of law firms like mine exist in America.
Right.
And so I think part of what you and I do is really help spread the message of entrepreneurship, capitalism, free markets, and goodness gracious, if you've got an idea, let's go and see if the world will think your idea is valuable.
Yes, and help you get it out there. Well, you're so right about the loneliness of entrepreneurship. It's why we do our conference every year. It's coming up November 21st and 22nd. By the way, you mentioned Jay Abraham. He'll be speaking at our partner day the day before that, so that'll be a lot of fun. But it's just a collection of what we call the icons of small business that all come together and help small businesses to grow. With automation primarily is obviously our focus, but getting like-minded people together and learning how they can grow their business and learning from each other is really the big thing. So that'll be November 21st and 22nd in Phoenix. Excited about that. Tell people where they can learn more about you. If they're in law and they're looking to improve their legal marketing, they just want a little bit of direction and advice. And where can people learn more about you, Ben?
Yeah, thanks, Clay, for asking. So it's a couple things. So you can go to greatlegalmarketing.com. You can see what we do there. You can go to benglasslaw.com to see how we take these principles, and at least in our digital website space, what we're doing there. And our joint friend Dan Kenny and I just published the 4th edition of No BS Time Management for Entrepreneurs. And I added some parts to that book that had a much different angle than Dan did. And the reason he asked me to participate in that book is he knows I'm busy. And he knows I got stuff done. And, he knows that I'm ruthless. He said in one of his newsletters, you'd be surprised at how much Gentle Ben and Grumpy Dan actually align on these things. and by ruthless, we don't mean being mean, but we mean paying attention. Yeah. And so we're helping to free up the entrepreneur so that he or she can do what they were born to do, act in their zone of genius, spend most of their time there, because that's how you move the world.
Yeah.
And we need to support each other, I think, share ideas, promote entrepreneurism, and which is what you have been doing. forever and ever. You and I were teenagers when we started these things. Almost.
I love it.
Now I remember your story of three guys over a pizza shop. Like, I think
That's
eating
right.
pizza and wondering.
That's right.
You get the phone call from the fella who had a major
Reed
problem.
Hoisington.
Yes, and needed
Reed
you to
Hoisington.
solve the problem. So good for you.
That's right. Well, we'll keep teaching entrepreneurship and helping entrepreneurs, work through the dark side of entrepreneurship, conquer the chaos, and achieve the balanced growth in their business and personal life. That's what it's all about. Thanks for going into some of the marketing stuff, principles, the follow up, the relationship building. I think that's one of the real key things that stands out for me. So, for our listeners, if you're not really connecting with your clients the way that you want to, and you're not building relationship, take something from what Ben has shared here today. Create something where you can really connect in what makes you unique to your market, that enables you to connect on a personal level and really build that relationship, whether it's physical newsletters or live events or bringing people into your world or sharing your personal stories, writing to them about the problems that affect them that you can help address. Those are the things that really create great relationships. And I think, Ben, at the end of the day, that's why we do what we do. We love the relationship building. I appreciate our relationship for nearly 2 decades. Thank you for being a long time customer of ours at Keep, and thank you for all that you do to help other small business law firms build their business with automation and follow-up. We know that follow-up is the great game changer, and automation is the best way to do that.
I'm so glad that we could connect and have this conversation because it has been too long, my friend.
It has.
So I've waited for this and treasured this time that we've spent. Thank you for having me on.
I have too. Thank you, Ben, for being here. And thank you all for joining us on this episode of the Conquer the Chaos podcast. Until next time, get out there and keep growing. Thanks so much for listening. Subscribe right here on YouTube or in your favorite podcast app to make sure that you don't miss a single episode of the Conquer the Chaos podcast. And hey, if you like this episode, let's get this out to more entrepreneurs. We all know that it is not easy to grow a great business and a great life. And so let's get this message out to others. Make sure that you hit the like button, that you comment, and that you share it with others so that we can help other entrepreneurs build a great business and a great life as they conquer the chaos. Keep going, keep serving, and keep growing.